Imagine for a moment that everything you've labeled as broken inside you, every insecurity, every dark thought, every flaw you've buried deep, was not a curse but a compass, not a prison but a portal. What if the parts of yourself you've been taught to be ashamed of are not mistakes but messages, signals sent from your deeper self to help you remember what you've forgotten? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, proposed something radical: that the very elements we repress, deny, or cast aside in ourselves are the keys to wholeness. He called this hidden side of the self the shadow, and he believed that by confronting it, truly meeting our own darkness, we could unlock not just personal healing, but a profound sense of purpose. But let's be clear, the shadow isn't simply a catalog of your sins. It's not just a bag of bad habits or secret vices. It's the collection of everything you've been told you shouldn't be: your anger, your jealousy, your need for validation, your fear of being seen, but also your wild creativity, your untamed sexuality, your forbidden dreams. It's the totality of the self that lives in exile, not because it is evil, but because society, family, or your own ego told you it was too much, too wrong, or too dangerous to express. And yet, the paradox is this: the shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It is the unrecognized self that holds the missing pieces of your potential. To deny it is to deny your wholeness, the mirror of conflict. Consider how often conflict arises in your daily life. Maybe it's a coworker who grates on your nerves, a partner who triggers you, a friend whose confidence somehow feels like arrogance. Jung said something striking: everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. In other words, the people who provoke us are often mirrors, reflecting back our own shadow traits. Think about that for a second. What if the anger you feel towards someone isn't about them at all? What if it's a signal, an emotional flare pointing to something unacknowledged in yourself? Shadow work begins with this discomfort. It starts in the tension of projection, the gap between who we think we are and who we unconsciously fear we might be. But the goal is not self-condemnation. The goal is integration, a process Jung called individuation. It's the slow and deliberate act of reconciling the conscious and unconscious self. And this path is not for the faint of heart. It requires radical honesty. It demands that you look in the mirror and admit, yes, that too is me. The archetypal journey, mythology across cultures, echoes this journey. Every hero faces a descent into the underworld, not just to slay external beasts, but to wrestle with their inner demons. Hercules was not just a mighty warrior. He was also a man haunted by guilt, rage, and moral contradiction. Luke Skywalker didn't just fight Darth Vader. He confronted the possibility that the darkness he feared was already inside him. These stories endure because they are psychological blueprints. We are all on that same journey. We all face our personal underworld, the shadow self, and the only way forward is through. But here's what no one tells you. The shadow is not just filled with pain. It also holds your vitality, your power, your creativity, your intuition. It is the birthplace of the parts of you that were once silenced, your raw voice, your honest desire, your fierce sense of justice. Shadow work is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole, listening to the whispers. Jung believed the unconscious speaks to us in symbols, through dreams, archetypes, art, and emotion. Have you ever had a dream that stayed with you like a haunting melody? A dream where you were chased, or confronted, or transformed? That wasn't nonsense. That was your psyche speaking its own language. Or maybe you've experienced intense emotion that seems to come from nowhere. Jealousy, sadness, rage. These too are messages. The shadow whispers in feelings that don't make logical sense. But if you listen closely, you'll hear it saying, "Look at me, I am you." Sometimes the shadow appears in our creative blocks, in our resistance to change, in our tendency to self-sabotage. These aren't accidents. They are unhealed wounds asking to be seen, a map to meaning. When we begin to accept our shadow, something remarkable happens. Life starts to make sense in a different way. Not as a random sequence of events, but as a symbolic journey of transformation. The challenges we face are not punishments. They are invitations. The people who hurt us are not villains. They are catalysts. Even the pain we carry from childhood becomes a kind of code, waiting to be decoded. And here's the deepest truth. Your purpose is not found in who you pretend to be. It is found in who you have the courage to become. That includes your shadow, especially your shadow. Because until you integrate the full spectrum of who you are, you will remain at war with yourself, fighting ghosts that live within your own skin. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The light we seek is not outside of us. It is hidden in the dark, waiting, patiently, practical pathways to integration. So how do we begin? The first step is awareness. You must become the witness of your own reactions. Journal your emotional triggers. When someone provokes you, don't ask, "Why are they like that?" Ask, "What are they showing me about myself?" Next comes exploration. Engage in dream work. Notice recurring symbols. Sit with uncomfortable feelings without rushing to fix them. Name the disowned parts of yourself. Write letters to your shadow. Ask it what it wants, what it fears, what it longs to express. Then comes compassion. You cannot hate yourself into wholeness. You must create an inner space where even your darkest parts feel safe to speak. This is not indulgence. It is integration. Only when the inner child, the inner rebel, the inner saboteur feel heard can they transform. Finally comes embodiment. Don't just understand your shadow. Live in response to what it teaches. If you discover a suppressed creativity, act on it. If you find a buried anger, channel it into boundaries. If you uncover grief, let it soften you into empathy. Your purpose begins where your shadow ends. The final revelation. And now, the final and perhaps most startling insight. Your shadow holds the secret not just to who you are, but to who the world needs you to become. Why? Because every healed wound becomes a bridge. Every integrated trait becomes a gift. Your shadow, once embraced, becomes your medicine. The thing you once feared becomes your unique power. The anger you hid becomes your fire for justice. The sadness you denied becomes your well of compassion. The chaos you avoided becomes your gateway to creativity. In this way, the shadow is not your burden. It is your becoming. So the question remains, not just, are you ready to face your shadow? But rather, what part of yourself is waiting to finally come home?